And frankly, we should have debated this war powers resolution that Ro Khanna and I offered instead of staying on vacation and doing fundraisers and saying, oh, well, the president's got this under control. We're going to cede our constitutional authority.
Should you have called everybody back?
First of all, we did make bipartisan calls. Thomas Massie and the Democrats, he should be a Democrat because he's more aligned with them than with the Republican Party. We're given notice. The White House made calls to congressional leadership. They were bipartisan calls. In fact, Hakeem Jeffries couldn't be reached. We tried him before the strike and he didn't pick up the phone, but he was briefed after, as well as Chuck Schumer was briefed prior to the strike. So this notion that CNN ran with at the White House did not give a heads up to Democrats is just completely false. In fact, both Senator Schumer's office and CNN had to retract that story last night because it was a blatant lie. And we showed them the timestamps from those phone calls. But I want to add something.
I mean, of course they lied. They want to make Trump act like he's acting outside of his authority. When, let's be real, I mean, he did his due diligence. Like, let's be real. He said, all right, you guys want to act like you didn't get briefed, but you got briefed. I don't even care if you got briefed and the guy pulled up. You just put your ears in like, no, you heard it. We're going to go bomb Iran's nuclear facility. And it is what it is. And now they're going to go run to the media like, oh, no, we didn't hear anything. How could Trump do this behind our back? I mean, guys, lie again. Just lie again.
To Thomas Massie's false point. The White House was not obligated to call anyone because the president was acting within his legal authority under Article 2 of the Constitution as commander-in-chief of the president of the United States. We gave these calls as a courtesy, and the Democrats are lying about this because they can't talk about the truth of the success of that operation and the success of our United States military and the success of this president and this administration in doing something that past administrations, Democrats too, have only dreamed about.
Yeah.
And regardless, Trump's presidency is still a success. I'm sorry, but it's still a success considering that we got low inflation, low prices, the economy's in a good going upwards in the right position, and oil prices went down. I know, right? Like during the conflict with Iran, like Trump took the steps and just said, let's release some of this reserve. Exactly what we did. So to be quite honest, I believe we're in good hands when it comes to Trump. When it comes to leadership, of course, that's all we freaking need. Which is all we need. It's good leadership. Now, in this whole situation, like I said, he definitely took us for a ride on this one. I feel like I was a backseat driver in a very wild ride. I'm just in the back there shaking and going like, bro, like, what was all that about? But hey, here we are safe at the location, right? And here we are safely at a ceasefire.
President Obama did not ask for permission to bomb Libya in 2011.
That's right.
Finally, I know you guys are going over to NATO. You're going to go one day later. It's going to be on Tuesday. So far, our NATO allies are looking for de-escalation. What do you want to hear from them about what we did over the weekend?
That's right. The president will be taking off for NATO tomorrow morning. And one of the main topics of discussion will be that 5% threshold that our NATO allies have to hit. The president has been calling on our NATO allies to do more for quite some time. He got them to step up and do more in his first term. And you'll hear the president talk about that on this next historic trip to Europe. You
want them spending 5%, right? 5% of their GDP on defense. Yes. Some of them just got to 2%. Have you gotten any pushback on that?
Not so far, not that we've heard, and the president has been adamant. And our NATO allies, to their credit, heeded the president's strong call in his first term, and we expect that.
I wonder how much that extra 3% is, though, in their GDP. Like, I wonder how much that is, and can these guys afford it? Hopefully, we're not taking free health care away from anybody. Well, you never know. Like I always just say, a lot of these guys can afford these things because we pretty much foot the bill for NATO and their military and a lot of other things as well. But let's not get into that. Now, guys, this man Cenk was cooking on this point. And I hope that we don't fall into this like trap again, right? Because I don't often agree with this guy because he's wild as hell and overly emotional. But even in his overly emotional rants, he does make sense. All right, guys, but let's make sure we don't become like this, because I do see a lot of this going around, and it is a bit concerning because it's kind of what they used last time into getting us into World War or getting us, against our own people or pretty much causing division amongst each other. Let's just not fall for it again. And shout out Cenk for honestly bringing it up.
Yes, Muslim lives matter. I'm so sick of our lives not mattering. And American media, you are guilty. You're the ones who got the whole country, my whole life, to hate me, to hate my Muslim family, to hate all Muslims across the world. You're the sick sons of bitches that called us terrorists. Does my life matter? Does my life matter? Does my family's life matter?
So Konstantin Kisin,
I mean, we don't even need to go into that far. I mean, he just said that's pretty much is what it is right there. I mean, do their lives even matter to you guys, or are you just that hinged up on Muslims? Like, I thought we were against the regimes that, like, oppress these guys, and now we're turning it into the war against the entire people. And I mean, if you're parroting that and you're catching yourself, understand that it's just because you're hearing that propaganda, you're kind of running with it. But let's refrain from carrying that mentality that got us into these forever wars in the first place. Let's remember, it all started with the mentality of it. But all right, though, let's get right back to my man Tucker.
I'm pretty sure it's 2012. Roger Ailes was running it. Wonderful man, flawed guy, but wonderful. I really liked him and admired him personally. Others disagree, but I still feel that way. But anyway, he had this guy called Andrew Napolitano, Judge Knapp.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever run into him?
Yeah.
What a nice guy. Just a really nice guy. Like everyone liked.
Yeah, he was great.
I still really like him a lot. But anyway, he had this show, I think it was called Judging Freedom, maybe?
Yeah. And he's more of a libertarian, I would say.
Exactly. He was hired as a libertarian. Well,
Yeah.
he's a strict libertarian.
Right.
He's an absolute constitutional.
Like, stay out of other countries.
100%. He's kind of a more erudite Thomas Massey.
Yeah.
The same basic politics. Not a hater at all. Just a nice man. But anyway, he made some anti-war noises on his show and basically said, why are we supporting all these other countries? Like, why are we doing this? Whoa. He lost his show over it. And a bunch of people came to Roger Ailes. I remember I talked to him about it at the time and demanded that he fire Judge Napolitano over this.
Wow.
And ultimately they just stripped him of his show, but kept him around as a contributor for another 4 or 5 years. As I remember, I may be getting some of the details wrong, but that's basically what happened. They took his show away.
I always wondered what happened. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. He was like,
I loved watching that show.
Oh, it was great.
Like,
it was interesting too. And he's really smart. Oh man. And I remember thinking, oh, that's the red line. They don't care if you get up there and you're like, I think, whatever, some controversial racial opinion, or, they'd be like, that's a little hot. Maybe not. Don't go there. You express, an opinion about our foreign policy that they don't like. We're done now. Like, they are totally serious about that.
Well, you knew Roger Ailes used to watch our show religiously on the weekend because he was home.
Yeah.
And the joke was, well, if you own a network or you run a network, what do you do on the weekend once you wake up and have coffee? You watch your shows, So it was a joke that he would watch our Fox and Friends weekend show more than just about any other show on the network because it was Saturday morning. He was waking up with coffee. So he would call into the booth all the time, about a graphic being wrong. Like, he was very, very cautious. But no one ever told me what to say or anything. There was one time where I criticized Mark Zuckerberg and I called him a scumbag on the air.
Fair.
And I got a talking to about that. Like, we don't use the term scumbag. And I was like, oh, I'm from Philly. I thought that was like, that's kind of like, that's how you talk, I'm sorry. No, we have moms and with their children, we don't use the word scumbag. I'm like, okay, got it. I'll refrain from calling Zuckerberg a scumbag. But, it makes sense to me. I never hit that red line in that way because, as you pointed out, you're being guided a certain way. So all of the segments, for those of your viewers that don't understand, like, you have a card, you'd have like a packet, of maybe like 10 articles regarding the segment you're about to do. And every segment's like 4 minutes long. So you and I can talk for 2 hours. Every segment is like 4 minutes long. Then you've got a commercial break. And you might have 2 guests during that time. So it's a debate. Can you really have a debate in 4 minutes?
No.
So you have a debate, and always the other person's always.
They do try it though. They do be trying to have whole debates in like 4, 13 minutes, 20 minutes max. And that's literally how mainstream media works. It's like 4 to 13 minute debates, and we think we're gonna get to something. I'm like, okay, but it is entertaining though within that 4 to 13 minutes. I'll tell you that.
Sort of set up for failure to begin with anyway. But and you're sort of guided in what their positions are. You know that John Smith, he believes this, and Sarah whatever believes this, and you kind of go from there. If you deviate from that, that's when you have problems. So that's you're guided through the whole day like that, and that's why this weekend when we were watching this coverage, I was not surprised as they would sort of hand off coverage from show to show to show to show. It's all the same. Trump,
all the same.
Trump did the most amazing thing ever. He carried out, he destroyed Iran's nuclear infrastructure. This is amazing. Oh, and by the way, if you're anti this attack on Iran, that's the new message now, then you're unpatriotic.
Well, you're pro-Iran.
You're pro-Iran. You're
pro-Iran.
You were never MAGA. You're pro-Islamic terror.
You're a bigot. It just reminds me so much of Black Lives Matter in 2020.
Oh, yeah.
We were on the other side, of course. I certainly was. And Fox was. Generally, they didn't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
They were kind of pro-Black Lives Matter, actually, if I'm being totally honest. But I was completely opposed to it from day one.
I mean,
just because I thought it was irrational and destructive and stupid. But it's the same impulse. It's like this hysteria sweeps over America, fanned by the media, Fox being a big part of that, the biggest media. And anyone who disagrees is just written off as a hater. Like they go right to motive. Oh, you must be taking money from a foreign power. You must hate this or that group. There's no even attempt to engage with what you're saying. It's like they just write you off. Just like it's the same as shut up, racist.
Right. You can't ask questions about Black Lives Matter being a corrupt organization, stealing money, which is
questions.
a fact.
I mean, that is true though, but I tend to lean in harder to opinions that you tend to get called names for. It's like, all right, yeah, you do kind of speak out against black problems. Like, what will happen to me? I get called Uncle Tom, bootlicker, all that wild stuff. Shoot. I mean, you speak out against Israel, you're anti-Semitic. I mean, you speak up for Muslims. Damn, what do they call you? Oh, yes, you're sponsored by Qatar or Iran, or you're taking money or something like that. There is always some label for you for having an opinion. I'll tell you that right now. It does suck that it has to be that way, but it is what it is. I mean, and the thing is, though, these labels aren't kind of meant to label who you are. They're just meant to kind of shut you up or make you kind of doubt, your idea, which I don't think you should, unless let somebody fully challenge it on you, and then you can doubt it. But don't let somebody doubt your idea or doubt what you're saying because they disagree or they want to call you a name. Come on, don't be weak.
You're a racist. How dare you ask that question?
Yeah.
It's Black Lives Matter. We literally paint Black Lives Matter on intersections. How dare you?
I know.
Talk about the
And yes, Islamophobe. You're right. Islamophobe is definitely one too. When you start leaning a little bit too into what the Muslims be doing, damn, what are you Islam? Honestly, they call you Islamophobe when you also talk about the immigration crisis in the UK. So yes, when you call out any race or anybody or any group of people for whatever atrocities they doing, you get hit with that label. You get hit with a very racist label. And it sucks, but I mean, hey, man, they got to try to quiet you somehow. They got to try to pipe you down some way, somehow, without killing you.
The folks that are running it are actually stealing money. It's a corrupt organization. You can't bring that up.
We're sorry to say it, but this is not a very safe country. Walk through Oakland or Philadelphia. Yeah, good luck. So most people, when they think about this, want to carry a firearm, and a lot of us do. The problem is there can be burn.
You start speaking up for white dudes, they call you a white nationalist. Honestly, no, so effed up. When white guys start speaking up for themselves, you are now a white Nazi nationalist. And you could hate Hitler, but you're a Nazi because you're speaking up for yourself as a white man. I mean, son of a bitch, right? Sucks.
Of being exactly the way that they themselves are. Is anyone who asks questions or disagrees is woke now? Have you noticed this? The woke right? So you're I'm not sure that we should have a war with Iran right now. And it seemed like there were a lot of problems here. And people I know are dying of drug ODs. Shut up, racist. You're woke. It's wait, what? Or people who are clearly working on behalf of a foreign country accuse you of working on behalf of a foreign country. It's so amazing.
Because, well, so many of these were former left-wing.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing, right? So these neocons, let's be honest, right? They were left-wing.
Oh, yeah.
So they have now taken the moral high ground to tell me that I'm part of the woke right because I don't want us to intervene in a foreign. So I guess by that measure, then George Washington is a member of the woke right.
Hey. I mean, bro, Clayton, trust me, my people was looking at me crazy too when I was on my non-interventionist spiel. And there was, I mean, and it's understandable. It is understandable. I get it. It's like, well, like said, what do you want? You want them to have a bomb? And I'm like, no, but I don't want to get into a conflict with them. So trust me, it's always healthy to have those debates. But this to try to shut you down and try to call you an isolationist and all this wild stuff is like, that ain't it. That ain't it. It's kind of best just to have that conversation.
Farewell address telling the nation we shouldn't intervene in foreign affairs of other countries.
So I thought wokeness was a euphemism for engaging in identity politics. It's identity politics. What matters most is your identity.
Right.
Ethnic, religious, whatever, racial. The people who are using the term woke right are practicing like the most vicious kind of identity politics I've ever seen. It makes the Black Lives Matter people seem like amateurs, which they are, of course. I mean, this is serious identity politics. Like, you disagree, you're a Nazi.
Right.
Like, what's that but identity politics?
Well, and it's also being described as like insidious. Like, you're not aware that you're anti-Semitic. You're so anti-Semitic now. Like, Tucker, I don't know if you know, just the way that you dress today is now anti-Semitic. Or
it's unconscious bias.
Right. I mean, I literally heard.
Now, I had somebody tell me, like, bro, I don't think you know, but like, bro, but you hate black people, Set. I was like, bro, I'm not gonna tell you the exact words I used, but I was like, bro, what? Like, do you hear yourself? He's like, bro, come on, bro. You don't speak up for our causes. So that means, bro, you low-key hate your own people. I'm like, bro, your cause ain't my cause. It's like, what the hell you talk about? Just because I don't agree with your cause, I hate my people. But that is how people spin it on you. I mean, you could take it from black issues to, I mean, to geopolitical politics to regular politics here at home. They always do try to throw something like, oh, you're not for your country. Oh, you're for this. You're for Israel. Oh, you're for war. It's always something to try to disregard your idea. But hey, it is what it is. And I'll be real with you. It is a good debating tactic, to be quite honest. If you can set a label on somebody, you can get the audience to disregard what they say if the audience disagrees with whatever label you placed on them.
Just hear this 5 years ago from the left.
And now we hear
bias. You're racist without knowing it. You don't need to be aware of your bad attitudes. You just
if I'm debating with somebody in an audience with a bunch of Jews, and I call you anti-Semitic, and I label you that, and I get the audience to pick up on it, I don't want to debate. I don't even gotta talk no more. I just gotta say the word anti-Semitic and why you always bringing up Israel, and I automatically win the debate. Depending on the audience, of course.
Exude them.
We heard this 5 years ago from the left, and literally driving here, I heard it on Glenn Beck's radio show. Glenn Beck said the exact same thing. And I like Glenn Beck.
Oh, I love Glenn.
But he said most people now, it's sort of I don't know his exact wording. Glenn, don't be mad at me, but it was like, he'll admit it, that we're now, it's like an insidious, it's like a sort of soft anti-Semitism that people are now, they just, without really consciously being aware of it, they've become anti-Semitic.
So it's
the same thing.
It's wild.
It's exactly, we're gonna need to be deprogrammed.
But we've been so heavily programmed by the mainstream media with wall-to-wall.
Like, I always remember one thing I had to deprogram myself was on, like, when white people like to bring up black issues. And I used to think it was like racism, but then when you actually hear them out, you're going like, it's not like you're really like criticizing us. You're damn near shooting some ideas at us. So, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? I mean, it's always best to hear them out. I know you might want to get over the feeling that it's racist when really it's just criticism. And I mean, I ain't gonna lie, sometimes criticism is gonna sound racist. Let's be quite honest here. And usually people are afraid of criticism, even though they don't admit it.
Coverage. You're not getting any perspective from from the Middle East. You're not getting any perspective from Iran. You're not getting any perspective from that side of it.
No.
All of the guests that you'll have on television are all pro-Israel. This is right out of that same playbook from 2002. So, like, if you look at the data on this, I find this fascinating. And again, this is where I'm trying not to be emotional, but I'm trying to just like look at the data after 2002. And I came at this from like a personal perspective, and not to talk about me, but like my brother was in the first Gulf War, and he went in with the Navy SEALs before anyone else. He was in Baghdad. So he was there basically directing Tomahawk missile attacks at himself. You know, he could flying right over his head, essentially.
He was in Baghdad?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So we would send like care packages and things like that. But of course, we were all told at the time, tie a yellow ribbon around your tree. You remember the black and white images of Wolf Blitzer with a little helmet on, you know,
Facts.
talking about how great this was to stop to stop Saddam Hussein. So we watched all that happen. I forget how long that lasted. It was like 11 months or something like that. I forget. Ish. So then 2002 rolls around, and here we go again. And now the playbook was set.
Is your brother out by this point?
No, he wasn't out at this point. He was still in.
All right, now let's get over to a more controversial figure right now. Dave Smith. Now, I mean, this is the self-hating Jew that everybody likes to come at, especially Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin. All right, guys, let's get right into it.
In Qatar and Iraq, that's what's being reported so far. According
I thought
to
we neutered them and they learned their lesson. That can't be possible. Holding hands with everybody in prayer and just trying to connect with nature and bring good vibes into the world. I'm becoming a real hippie, taking my shoes off.
my friend,
No, the
right,
urine's got to
I think-
come back at you in order for the ceremony to work. Everybody knows this.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a new world, and maybe we got to try some new things. I can't argue with you. Now, I am as we record this, I've got my phone here, and I'm getting updates and texts from people and stuff. But so as of right now, as we're recording this, it's 1:04 p.m. Eastern on Monday. It's evidently going down right now. Iran's retaliation, Iran's response. Excuse me. They've sent missiles toward American bases both in Qatar and Iraq. That's what's being reported so far. According
I
to
thought we neutered them and they learned their lesson. That can't be possible.
Yes, right. That's right. You know, look, we're going to get into this in a second, but it has been, there's something about the war propaganda for this one. And it's, I think, particularly because it's a very interesting dynamic where they're kind of attempting to launch a war. And this isn't very different than, say, like Ukraine, where we were just backing the Ukrainian forces. And also Ukraine was invaded, despite all of the provocations that led up to that. It's still a country that was invaded, and you're selling the people on, we're going to give them weapons to defend themselves. This is a much different situation. This is America directly involved in a war. Although, as of our last podcast, Rob, everyone was mocking us saying we're not in war, but I shouldn't say everyone, but
And can I get a hoorah? Of course, America at the end of the day. I mean, trust me, trust and believe. It's always America at the end of the day. It's just like I said, my only concern, like you guys got to remember, my main concern is for American safety. Like, that's really the main concern. If you always boil down my arguments, it's always about, well, what about us? Like, where's this gonna bring us to? So always remember, it's always about us, America. Well, the American people, really, the kind of the only people I care about, really, to be quite honest. I know. I mean, I may be a dick for saying it, but you can only care about so many people. And I choose to care about the ones in my nation. It is what it is.
a few dishonest people were. But this is now, you're launching a war in the new media environment, where the corporate media is a
You want me to
corpse,
come on,
and
bro.
the new media
But come on, bro. I'm not just going to yell that through the house. Come on.
is what's vibrant and alive, and where everybody is getting their information from. And this creates a whole different dynamic and a whole different set of obstacles for the war party to get their propaganda through. But I've seen so many wars that were sold off lies. All the wars in my lifetime have just, had blatant
I'm like, man, these walls echo pretty hard, Fox Chase. I'm not even going to lie. The walls echo.
lies at the very beginning of them. Like insane war propaganda. I've never seen one where it's moving so quickly.
it's like the talking points from 3 days ago have completely been abandoned, and people are pretending like they didn't even make those talking points 3 days ago. Look, we'll get through all of this. Hold that thought in your head, because that is there's a lot that we could expound on with that. But as of right now, the Iranian response seems to be going down. We will see what ends up coming of this. Of course, this is the real risk of escalation here. You know, if you could just do whatever you wanted to this country and nothing would ever respond, then maybe you could argue, we'll ding them a few times and then walk away, no problem. That gets very complicated by the fact that they can now do this and send missiles back at our bases. And of course, this is what, you know, people like Scott Horton have been talking about for 20 years, about the dangers of a war with Iran. And me and you have been talking about this for quite a while ourselves. But what happens now if 15 or 20 or 100 or, you know, God forbid, any like U.S. servicemen are killed over this? You think Donald Trump's just going to take dead Americans and then he's not going to have to respond with something even greater? Anyway, I will bring you updates as they come during the course of this show. It's one of those things. This happens in our field of work where a breaking thing is going down right as you're recording. It's a little annoying of the world. If they could do their big things either before or after the show, that would be much more helpful going forward. But nonetheless, you know, if we had done an episode yesterday, I might be like, hey, let's push back a couple hours and like see what happens here, and then we'll talk about it. But I just felt like, since, you know, the attack went down on the weekend when we don't record, we kind of have to do a podcast anyway, just catching up on everything that happened from the beginning to here. So let's kind of go over this. As I was saying, it is really one of the things that's really remarkable about this, particularly in the position that I just happen to be in. So I've kind of like, you know, I happen to have, I wouldn't say come on the radar, but I guess gotten to the point where like I'm like a prime focus of a lot of the kind of neocon war hawk hacks. Yeah, Freudian slip, I suppose. But so, you know, like they just wrote a hit piece in National Review about me the other day. I was quite proud of that. That will be hung up here in the studio at some point. I have to get a physical copy of it, which is, you know, next to impossible. No one reads the thing anymore. But still, it's not as cool as if they had done it like when National Review really meant something. But it's the publication that drove Murray Rothbard out of the conservative movement is attacking me publicly. It's quite a badge of honor. I appreciate that. But, you know, like Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin and all these guys have been coming. So when it comes to this specific war, way back 3 days ago, these people were all mocking me because I said the U.S. was involved in war. And I don't know if you could even remember back to 72 hours ago, Rob, but the talking point then, as they mocked me for being an ignorant comedian who doesn't really understand geopolitics, what they were running with 3 days ago was America isn't at war. You're just letting Israel take care of business. What's your problem, Dave? You criticize us when we fight other people's wars, but now you're also criticizing us when we just let Israel conduct its own war. And by the way, they've completely taken out the Iranian nuclear program. You remember that, Rob? This was their talking point after Israel's strike, that Israel is so badass, they have decapitated the nuclear weapons that Iran does not have. And of course, right after that, Donald Trump attacks. Now, when Donald Trump attacks, they say, that's it now. Now, this was the really successful one. Israel did just about everything, but Donald Trump, you know, we got these bunker busters and the might of the American military. We just needed to drop a couple bunker busters. That's all that happens. The rest Israel will handle, all of this. Donald Trump then sends all of his people out to do the Sunday shows. He's got all his guys going out. They're all saying this is a one and done strike. There's no regime change here. This is not about a regime change. This was never a regime change war. Then all day that day, I got everybody, all the hawks on Twitter going, see, Dave, you're arguing as if this is a regime change war. Then Donald Trump announces he wants regime change. That's the next step. Now they're all arguing why regime change is good. The same thing that they told you yesterday you were stupid for believing, they'll now tell you not only is it true, but it's a great thing that it's happening. By the way, after the U.S. strike, Israel then picked up their strikes, and they're bombing non-nuclear targets, just regime targets. Prisons filled with political enemies of the Iranian regime, different, strategic, targets of strategic value for the regime that have absolutely nothing to do with nuclear sites. So again, it's just like with all these things, it's unbelievable the levels of dishonesty that the war hawks are capable of. Like it's something that still to this day, it's like when you just talk to a complete liar, there's something jarring about it, but they will argue with you, get you dragged into arguing this point. And then when you are proven right the next day, they just abandon it like it never happened and move on to the next talking point about why you're stupid for not supporting the war. It is just, I don't know, man. It's unbelievable to witness.
Yeah, I think Dave is missing context on that one. Like, we're not saying that we're at war. We're saying that Iran and Israel was at war. Not the USA, but Iran and Israel. So if he's talking about, oh, well, we were in a war, no, but Iran and Israel for sure.
Any thoughts, Rob?
Well, yeah, the lying and then complete pivot is pretty remarkable. It seemed I watched all of the wonderful content that you've done over the last couple of days. I watched the Zero Hedge debate along with the Piers Morgan appearance. I feel like there was one other one, but I watched all of it, and it felt to me that some of what you were saying is this feels like the U.S. is a gambler, and they've lost a lot of money gambling, and they're walking into the casino going, hey, I just want to look at the craps table. I'm not going to play at the craps table. And you're like, well, why don't we just not go near the craps table? It seems to always be a problem. And they're going, it's not going to be a problem this time. This time we're just going to look at the thing.
Dude, that's a great analogy. I'm like, hey, you just bought chips. Why'd you buy chips? Why are you buying chips? They're like, no, dude, I just like the way chips feel in my hand. I'm not going to place a bet. I'm just going to go get real close to the table. And you're like, guys, I've seen this movie a lot before. I don't know.
And so now we're just a few days in, and everything that they said of that we wouldn't be involved is not true. We might get to the clips later, but they've been playing, both JD Vance and Marco Rubio have been on the news going, this is not going to escalate into a fight. Seemingly it already has. One of the most remarkable claims is, hey, they're just 14 days away from getting a bomb. And so we just need to do this one strategic strike and then they won't be able to. Then claiming that it's done to find out a day later that I don't know that all the sites were completely destroyed and potentially materials were taken out of one of the sites. And also, if they were just 14 days away, how do you know that they didn't contain any material in other locations that they could then still continue to break out? So yeah, it's been nothing but lies. It seems like the Donald Trump administration is absolutely looking to actually have this war while continuously pretending, no, we're not even fighting them. We're just going for the nuclear assets only. And all they need to do is come to the table and negotiate with us. Why would they trust Donald Trump? Donald Trump lied.
See, and this is the problem with like the overly Iran side is like, all right, come on now. We can't say that these guys have no duplicity to them. Like they're just not, you're telling me they're just acting in completely good faith. There's no bad faith to that. Like, yeah, sure though. Like, and I get it. America, we've had our aggression towards them. They have every reason to be fearful, but that even leans more towards like, it's kind of crazy how you kind of think they're acting with no really, duplicity to it or with no intentions of, getting back at their enemies.
It's them the first time. He pulls a little bit of a doll hair move where he goes, well, I gave them the 60 days, or I said, well, I was going to wait 14 days and I was going to make a decision within 14 days. I made it the next day. I didn't lie to them. But I'm just saying, after the Gaddafi situation and after the way that we've negotiated, why would they just trust us that if they were to absolutely fold on their nuclear ambitions, then all of a sudden we're going to give them a big hug and just let them back into the world economy?
No way.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, look, it's like, at this point, someone was arguing with me the other day and they said, something of like how, look, dude, it just like, we cannot take the threat of a regime enriching to 60% uranium or something about that. And it's like, yeah, but just think about like the fucking incentive structure that you've created here. Like if this regime does survive, which is quite possible. And if this regime does survive, you're like, okay, so you're telling me that for all the regime changes that America has had you ever see like where they list all the regime changes the U.S. has had like post World War II? where it's like all the regime changes through direct war or the CIA covert actions or colored revolutions or whatever. It's just like a long list. I think we're at like 70 something nations that we've overthrown. None of them have had nukes. We do not overthrow nuclear armed regimes because it's just, even for these guys, it's just too risky. So you're telling me we will, if you completely abandon your nuclear ambitions like Gaddafi, we'll overthrow you. If you develop nukes, we won't overthrow you. If you hang around at 60%, that's high enough, we'll overthrow you. So like, it's like the incentive is just so obvious. You're creating the incentive for more people to try to obtain nuclear weapons.
And worse than that, and this feels a lot like a lot of what I'm seeing feels like the propaganda I've seen before. So if you remember the Ukraine propaganda, it was Biden refused to say that NATO will not, Ukraine won't be a part of NATO, but then also pretended like we're not escalating the situation here. And so on the same note, they keep floating this.
All right, guys, there's been reports that Iran has already broken the ceasefire. I'm still looking into it, buddy. Yeah, and there people are trying to say it's a false flag, but it looks like breaking. Iran breaks ceasefire. This was blowing up all over X right now, so we take X with a grain of salt around here, but sometimes it does come out later. So yeah, but right now it is reported 11 minutes ago. Iranian state-run media outlets are denying that Iran violated the ceasefire and launched ballistic missiles earlier at Israel. So, yeah, we're going to take that with a grain of salt, but let's hope that's not what it is.
Talking point of, well, they enriched all the way to 60%. But then also the 60% is not really the problem. From what I understand, they were willing to go back to just being allowed to enrich uranium. But then the Donald Trump, they said, you guys can't enrich uranium at all, while then pretending that the issue was over the 60% enrichment. And it's like, that wasn't the fighting point. If anything, they went to the 60% to be within breakout range of having some sort of a nuclear deterrent, which, speaking to your point, this new environment would suggest don't be within range. Make sure that you're either fully there or not doing it at all, because being within range, you're going to be treated as if you have it without actually having the deterrent.
Yeah, that's right. And just to be clear, I mean, I know I've said this on some other podcasts, but so like they were also, it should be pointed out that Iran was in compliance with the JCPOA, because the way the deal was worked, right? Like the deal still exists. The deal was between like Europe, America, and Iran. But the way the deal was written was that if America pulls out of the deal, then they're allowed to enrich up to 60%. So that's what they did. America pulled out and they went, okay, well, then we're going to exercise our option to enrich up. But they still have the inspections regime. They still have inspectors coming in. That's how we know that they're at where they're at. That's actually what the Hawks are using against them, is the reports coming back from the inspection regime that still is operating in Iran. And so, and also they are on record saying we will get back into the original JCPOA if America wants to come back into it. So they're sitting there negotiating. Essentially, they've admitted that
But according to our man Skip, that was just too sweet of a deal for them. As you see right here with a super chat, shout out my man Skip.
Enriched all the way up to have something to negotiate away. That's what they were. That was the Iranian perspective in these negotiations, and this has been widely reported. It's like they were going like, "Hey, look, we'll come back down our enrichment levels, and you drop some of the sanctions against us." Like they were trying to negotiate back into the deal that we already had before Donald Trump decided to walk away from it. It's just all, anyway. So this idea that, because they're enriched, and look, all of this other stuff where even Tulsi Gabbard selling her soul and coming out and going, they could be weeks away, directly contradicting her testimony from just a couple months ago. And even the intelligence she was putting out just a couple weeks before that. Now they're saying they could be days away or weeks away. This is a completely new talking point, just invented after this war broke out. It was not a talking point 5 minutes before Israel bombed Iran. Even Benjamin Netanyahu, after he launched the initial attack, in his interview with Brett Baer, said maybe a year, maybe 13 months. But of course, Rob, and this is some of the stuff Thomas Massey is getting at, and we talk a little bit about that too. Of course,
really, all right, now it does look like we got a bit of confirmation. It says Israel says Iran violated ceasefire announced by Trump, vows to respond with force on damn today, pretty much. On June 24th, 2025, Israel condemned Iran for breaching the ceasefire declared by U.S. President Donald Trump and pledged, to take strong military action in response. The ceasefire was declared earlier that day by Trump after talks involving Israel, Iran, and Qatar as a mediator following weeks of intense conflict. Shortly after the ceasefire, Israel detected multiple missiles launches from Iran and intercepted incoming projectiles with sirens sounding in northern Israel. The Israeli defense minister, Katz, ordered continued high-intensity strikes against regime's targets in Tehran, stating the violation breached the agreement completely. And now reporting this would be, let's see here, we got India Today, we got 9 News, we also got Israeli media as well. So yeah, we have, I think this is Iranian media. All right, then. Yep, it is being confirmed. It is back on, and Al Jazeera is also confirming it as well. Israel orders intense strike on Tehran. Iran denies breaking truce. Could this be a false flag right now? Because this was released about a minute ago. Okay, that's on, guys. And I mean, like I said, we get the news as it comes in every time. So right now we're dealing with that right now. I wonder if there's any developing stories on it. Let me go ahead and check.
You have a year, then what does that mean? There's plenty of time to debate the issue in Congress. This isn't a situation where there's some pending emergency and the president has to strike. It's like, no, he could bring this to Congress, bring all of the evidence. This is the way our constitutional system supposedly was set up to work, is that the people's representatives in the Congress would get to make a decision on behalf of the people, looking at the evidence. Do we think that this threat, whatever. But of course, none of them want to do that. So they just launched an illegal war of aggression. Why not? That's good enough. The Israelis say so. That's good enough.
Son of a bitch, man. Guys, the path is looking familiar again. The path is looking familiar again, guys. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Good enough for Trump, evidently. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Crowd Health, a long time per person that they were critical.
I mean, hey, shout out. He said, Monty was like, but Israel bad. I mean, here's the thing. Iran's denying it. So we don't know. It's either Iran's bad or Israel's bad. It's either Iran's lying or Israel's lying. These guys is making it fucking difficult. I'm gonna be quite honest with you. It's getting irritating because it's like, dog. First, we get a ceasefire, and in the back of my head, I predicted that somebody's going to break the ceasefire. What happened? It gets broken. Israel says it's Iran. Iran's saying, no, we didn't do anything. Now we're just here in the middle, and now we're wondering, well, guess what? Who you think that America's going to pick sides on? Are we going to get involved now? Because it seems like it's commenced again. I guess my faith in Iran and the Israelis is right now kind of diminishing because we don't know who started it, and it would be unfair just to automatically assume that Iran's the aggressor here, seeing that Israel has a history of breaking ceasefires, and I believe Iran does as well.
Criticizing me of creating a framework where I'm right no matter what happens, and I kind of get that. I understand someone saying like, hey, you're saying you're going to be right if this happens or right.
Man, if it's a proxy, that's just too convenient to say that, because that just means like, oh, no matter what happens, no matter who do it, it's going to be like Iran. So no matter who attacks these guys, let's say it's not Iran. Let's say it was if it was Hezbollah, oh, well, that's one of their proxies. Let's say it was Hamas, one of their proxies. I mean, if it wasn't Iran, it's one of their proxies. So which means what? One of Iran's proxies could have forced us into that could have been a false flag. Iran could be like, yo, we didn't tell these guys to do it. But then Israel's going to say, yeah, you did. They're one of your proxies. This is where things are going to get confusing. This is where we're just going to have to pick sides at that point.
Right, if it doesn't happen. But my point was just that, like, look, there's only so many possibilities here. We will see how this all ends. But essentially what I was saying was like, what I'm praying for now, this is after Trump's strike. You go like the best case scenario here is that Iran really does just take this like a bitch. Like that they really do just take this, kind of wave the white flag, I knew they had to like respond in some way, but maybe they do one of these like, pretend responses like they did with Israel after Israel killed their guy in Syria there, and they gave the US warning and then sent a bunch of missiles that were all shot down and didn't really kill anyone. And they've already done a little bit more than that in Israel this time, and they've killed some people. But like maybe the response would be something like that again, something like the post-Soleimani response where they send some missiles at American bases but don't actually kill anybody or something like that. But so like what we're hoping for now, we're in a position where we are relying on Iranian restraint. This is the position that the hawks have brought us to, where we're counting on the mullahs to not do something crazy. And I was just making the point that, look, the best case scenario here is that nothing, like they do that, they puss out, they don't have a real response to this, and then somehow Donald Trump is able to say, look, I'm so great.
I would like to ask you guys this question. Are we going to get into this? Would you be okay with America getting into this because of this break in the ceasefire? Or like, how do y'all feel about this? Because personally, I'm back on the stance of, well, I guess we just got to let them hash it out because we tried a ceasefire. We already did our deal with the nuclear facility. I guess these guys just want to still go toe to toe. And we don't know who broke the ceasefire. But it will all come out throughout the day. We're going to find out throughout the day, though. I'm still on the lookout, though.
We hit them, we walk away. It doesn't lead to a wider war. But I was just making the point that if that happens, and then, people will undoubtedly, say, oh, you guys were alarmists on this, or you got it all wrong. You were talking about what a catastrophe this has been, but look, it didn't turn out to be that bad of a thing. But I was saying if that is the case, then really, even though people are going to say, oh, you were alarmist, the real takeaway from that would be that it disproves the entire foundation of the Hawks argument here, right? Like if the whole argument is that, yes, obviously at least the ones who aren't lying through their teeth will go, yes, Israel has secret nukes. Secret nukes aren't really the big problem. The big problem is the mullahs can't get nuclear weapons. Sure, Kim Jong-un has nuclear weapons. Sure, Joseph Stalin had nuclear weapons. Mao Zedong had nuclear weapons. Like some of the worst people who have ever existed in the history of the world. In fact, say the worst people who have ever existed in the history of the world had nuclear weapons, okay? But no. I know India has nuclear, Pakistan has nuclear weapons, no. But if Iran gets nuclear weapons, that cannot be allowed to happen. Like nobody ever suggested that we just launch a war of aggression against Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union because he was pursuing nuclear weapons, even though it was Joseph Stalin. You know what I mean? Like, even though it's like a guy who's already committed genocides, Mao Zedong killed more people than any human being who's ever lived. And yet nobody suggested the response to him having a nuclear research program was to launch an aggressive war against China. Nobody suggested that we preemptively strike India or Pakistan. So my point is that the whole case for the Hawks rests on this kind of unfalsifiable assertion that Iran with nukes will destroy the world. It's just, this is a risk we cannot tolerate. But if Iran takes this and doesn't do anything major in response, doesn't that just disprove the whole thing? Because the only reason they wouldn't do that is because, like all of those people, as bad as all of them are, as bad as Mao and Stalin, and as bad as like all these people throughout history have been, one of the things that they have in common that makes them kind of human is they like being in power and they like being alive and they don't want to die. They do have self-preservation. They don't. And so Iran, obviously, not just now or today, even before these strikes, Iran could do a lot of damage to Israel or our bases in the region, but they don't want to do that because they know what'll happen then. Okay, well, what happens if they nuke someone else? Everybody knows. Nobody doesn't think that if Iran had a nuke and then used it offensively, that the country wouldn't be destroyed as a result of it. The problem is just then you're at nuclear war, but everyone knows they'd be blown off the map. They'd be obliterated, as Hillary Clinton threatened to do. So if it is survival that dictates their restraint, then that disproves the whole goddamn point. Okay. And then my other point was that if they do respond and they do end up like killing some Americans, and then we have to respond to that, and then the situation escalates, well, then we're at this tremendous risk of another disaster. And so people could say, oh, I'm creating a situation where I'm right no matter what. But like, I'm just saying, argue with the point there. We didn't have to do this. And now the best case scenario is Iran doesn't do anything major in response, which disproves the Hawks' entire position. Or what I got to say, I think is the more likely scenario here is that they do something in response. And now we got dead Americans, or now we got a wider war, all for something we didn't have to do to begin with. So yes, I guess I'm proven right in both scenarios, but I'm sorry, like, make an argument about why either one of those is wrong. It just seems so obvious. This is clearly, you enter a war of choice, and there's two options here, essentially, broadly speaking, and both of them disprove the Hawks' own talking points.
Yeah. Well, speaking to being right, no matter whatever ends up happening here, I just see a lot of parallels between what we saw in COVID and the propaganda here. Just 14 days to slow the curve. I need 14 days to think about it. I don't actually want to be in a war. Yeah. And then the other one is, my takeaway on the COVID thing the entire time was that the vaccine is just, I'm not going to tell you that the vaccine is going to, have harmful effects to you, because I don't know. But it seems like an unnecessary risk, and that this thing is not good enough that we should be shutting down the country over. And I basically feel the same way about the Iran war. I don't have enough military intelligence to tell you, hey, is Israel taking out every factory there?
Yeah.
Is there so much discontent in the region that they're actually going to throw over the leader? Are we actually going to end up in a situation where this turns out to be better for Iran and we're just rid of this bad regime? I mean, these are aggressive gambles, and that's a possibility. I wouldn't predict that that's going to happen. I don't think it's likely going to happen. But at the end of the day, I don't think that these risks justify that potential outcome, because I don't think it's likely. And I don't even think it really serves our interest. At the end of the day, Iran does not have the capabilities of striking the United States of America. So this might serve Israel's interest. And no one ever explains to us why they're the most strategic asset. So the argument is essentially, we are taking unnecessary risk that doesn't actually benefit our direct interest.
Yeah.
There might be some corporate interest of that people don't want Iran oil on the market. That's not my direct interest. And so
it's certainly in some people's special interest, but yes, it's not in the general interest of the American
this
people.
Seems to be an unnecessary risk. And if you look at the track record of wars that we've had, and as you've said multiple times, this is unlike any of the other wars that we've had, because we have the debt that we have. We didn't have the debt that we currently have when we fought these other ones. And our country was slightly more unified when we had I'm just rehashing things I've heard from you on these other podcasts. But the point just being, I think it is a very fair and winnable argument to go, these are unnecessary risks. And in the long shot that you manage to get this right, which you likely won't, but in the very long shot, I still don't think that this gamble is going to be worth the payoff, and that the payoff is that great for us.
Well, let me just real quick, because there's I got an update here, which is actually a pretty big deal. So it's just reported right now, Disclose TV.
Yeah,
it's a good Twitter account to follow.
I can't find nothing on this Iran breaking the ceasefire deal or Israel breaking it. So I guess we're going to see coming tomorrow. But hey, you heard it here first, right?
Just in Iran coordinated, this is from the New York Times. They're reposting it. Iran coordinated attacks on the U.S. air base in Qatar, with Qatari officials providing advance notice to minimize casualties. So there is, at least we've gotten some reporting here now that they did the thing again where they give advance notice to minimize casualties. This would check out, because there were a bunch of like all over the region, everybody was on like the highest of alert, and there were some evacuations and stuff happening earlier today. So hopefully maybe we are seeing the first scenario there, where Iran is kind of bitching out and doing something for show. That being said, these things are still very dangerous, because even that, to minimize casualties, but what does that mean? What if there still are some casualties? And then how's that going to be? And then, of course, just like as you alluded to earlier, Rob, the whole thing is that, so in the negotiations, and this was widely reported, this was transparently the case, that so Iran comes into the negotiations when Donald Trump's saying he wants to negotiate. Donald Trump makes a 60-day time limit completely arbitrarily, just makes that up. Says they have 60 days to negotiate. Iran comes in going, okay, let's negotiate. How about we bring our enrichment levels down and we get back in the JCPOA and you drop some of the sanctions. And so they're trying to go. And then the Hawks insisted on putting in the poison pill, that you have to have zero enrichment. And you have to get rid of all your centrifuges and get rid of your civilian nuclear program entirely, which is like a totally ridiculous, like it's a poison pill. It's a request that they can't give, and you intentionally demand it to kill negotiations. And so this is what the Hawks are always doing, right? So they kill the negotiations. Then on the 61st day, Israel attacks. Now, I'm saying even if casualties are minimized, let's say there are 3 Americans who get killed. The Hawks are going to use that to beat the war drums and look at Donald Trump and say, Trump, what are you, a weak man? Or are you a big, tough, strong man who does something when Americans are killed? And this does seem to be the type of thing that actually moves Donald Trump. So anyway,
it's a great way to egg the man
just
on,
gaming
right?
all of that out. There was one other thing you said I wanted to respond to. Oh, yeah. In terms of like how successful the strikes actually were. And I've a few of my military buddies who really know what they're talking about here have confirmed this is true. This was kind of my gut instinct, but then I did get it confirmed by some people who actually have some expertise in with the subject matter. But you're talking about doing these air strikes alone with no forces on the ground. You have no idea what you got and what you didn't get. You need to send in ground forces to really know, is there nuclear material left? Was nuclear material moved? Was this? I mean, you can have some intelligence, but this is going based off sources and it's low confidence type stuff. And so even I think the Pentagon did say that some of the nuclear material had been moved, but immediately after the strike, everyone, of course, Donald Trump, first and foremost, is bragging about how successful they were and how it took out everything. The Iranians, who are really the only ones who would know, they go, no, it didn't do nothing, didn't take out anything. We've moved all of the nuclear material. Who knows who's telling the truth there? Or no, sorry, I shouldn't say that. Who knows if the Iranians are telling the truth? The Americans are just making it up. Donald Trump's administration is just saying it was very successful. But the bottom line is that for all of us, we just don't know. We don't know what, how much was achieved or not achieved by these strikes.
And on that note, just explain to me, how are they 14 days away from breaking out? And then you take out 3 strategic targets and then you declare, well, there's no longer any risk of a nuclear threat anymore. I mean, just rectify those 2 positions for me, particularly if you just kind of, kick the bee's hive here. And I guess potentially, I mean, you want to talk about the extreme upside. I guess it's that we flip Iran and they end up being a peaceful country and it's better for the people there. And the extreme risk side is that, they end up acquiring material from North Korea to finish a bomb because they weren't actually interested in doing that until now. Or that Russia and Iran decide, hey, we really don't like the way America's running around picking all these fights with our allies, and we're going to step in. And you know what? We're not at war with the U.S. either, but we're going to start very strategically.
And shout out to my man Friends, man. This man always be pulling out the info on Rumble. But hey, I haven't seen my man in a minute, but he definitely does have good insight on geopolitical issues. So shout out to Friends. But yeah, you guys can go ahead and read his comments. Hey, let me know if you guys agree with him or not. And Friends, you should definitely come on over to YouTube, man. We should get you on the stream.
Be sending a lot of arms into Iran or helping them with their nuclear program. I don't understand the claim of 14 days away from a bomb. Oh, we hit 3 targets and now mission accomplished. We no longer have to deal with this nuclear threat. And if the only thing you're concerned about was the nuclear threat, then I guess we don't have to even negotiate anymore. Yeah. Can we just call it a day? If it's mission accomplished and we're not at war with the regime, we're not at war with the people, and we're just at war with the nuclear threat. If you're going to tell me, hey, I mean, pull up, go ahead. I mean, you can pull up the tweet and read the tweet. Donald Trump said, mission accomplished. We're done. We did it. We took out the 3 strategic assets. So just somebody, one of these Trump loyalists, tell me how these 2 things fit together. 14 days away, 3 targets hit. We know that we're done. It's bullshit.
Yeah, complete bullshit. And then of course, look, it's like with all of these things, Donald Trump just speaks out of every side of his mouth and takes every position. So it's like completely incoherent. You don't even, but at the same time, it's like, no, listen, you just launched a war. So, and now you're talking about regime change. So like, what is it here? What's the goal? And it is, people, it's just like I've been saying for the last few days, even though, and you make the point about COVID, it is just, there are striking parallels there as well. And there's also just a ton of striking parallels between the war propaganda for almost all the wars and this one. But it is, I'm sorry, like the people falling for this one, you are so much worse than the people who fell for it in 2002 leading into 2003, because we got a 20 plus year track record now to look at and see all these people making these same claims with the same level of certainty. And then already we see them abandoning those claims and moving on to other claims and making them with the same certainty. It's just, it's ridiculous. But I mean, for people who, I still, we got to see how this plays out. We'll see what happens with these Iranian strikes and then see what the response to that is and what the response to the response is. But the idea that people, look, I'd say I still think at this point, where things are right now, yeah, I think I have to say, I don't think Donald Trump is really going to send the army in. Like, you're talking real boots on the ground, like that type of thing. I'd imagine he's not going to, just destroy his presidency, which it certainly would do. There's no question about that. If he is invading the country with the army, he has destroyed his presidency. He may have already. He's really risking it. But the point is that the risk of being lured into that is just unacceptable, as we're taking this risk of something that would be, if you're talking about a regime change, which is what the commander-in-chief himself is saying now, and certainly what the Israelis want and what a lot of the hawks have wanted for many years, many decades. You're talking, it's like people, they get in these like kind of goofy ideas. It's amazing how quickly, like when the war drums start beating, or let me actually tell this story, and then I'll get into the regime change stuff and what a regime change in Iran might actually look like, or what it might take. But so I remember this. Now, I didn't do very well in college. School was never my thing. I was much better at learning outside of school than I ever was at learning inside of school. But I do remember this one moment, and this was very interesting to me. So I graduated high school in 2002. So I graduated high school and then started college in the year 2002, which was the year between, 9/11 happened 2001, the invasion of Iraq happened in 2003. So I went to college in the year that was post 9/11, we had already invaded Afghanistan. And then,
all right, guys. Now it does seem like, so shout out to our man Friends. The way he was trying to explain it was that I guess that when they fired the missile and they stopped at the ceasefire, the missile like landed right when they stopped the ceasefire. Now I guess I'm not sure if I'm framing that wrong, Friends, but all right, it doesn't sound like the ceasefire was broken yet, but we will see by tomorrow, because like I said, it's fresh news. It's just hitting X, so we'll see what happens, everybody. Anyway, we will go ahead and end this show now, because we are hitting that time, guys. We're hitting that time. All right, guys. This Set with Set Media. I will catch you guys on tomorrow's show. Hopefully, there's a lot more developments coming on, especially with the details of the ceasefire. Well, we already know the details of the ceasefire, but hopefully we can get to details